Good afternoon and welcome to today's Lunchtime Learn, an introduction to DiSC. So for those of you that have heard about DiSC, maybe you've been part of a business where they've used it, or you've heard other people talking about it but don't quite know what it means, what the different terminology is, how you use it, where you use it and what you use it for, then you're in the right Lunchtime Learn. Just to tell you a bit about MyPeopleClub, so Chris and I are the founders of MyPeopleClub. We launched in March. And it's an online platform for people who are involved in HR, coaching and training. So what can those people find within MyPeopleClub? There's a whole raft of resources. There's template documents, policies, slide packs, guide documents, checklist assessment, the whole lot. Basically, we're trying to put as much in as we can to make your lives as easy as possible. And on top of that, we also bring in other experts who are the specialists in their field, from anything from marketing to mindset to how to grow your business to health and safety, everything we think that you need, certainly as someone that is involved in a business or even running a business. Then we've got masterclasses that they produce and we roll those out every month. And the latest one we've done for July is called The Psychology of Work, which talks about communication skills and learning styles and a bit around kind of stress and burnout. And we also have a number of businesses that work with us as part of our directory to let our members know more about them and the products and services they offer that complement what we do. And in a lot of cases offering discounts, kind of anywhere up to 20 or 25% discounts on their services. And these include some bars and restaurants as well, because we know as someone that's involved in HR traveling a lot, or if you're organizing coaching sessions or training events, often you've got to stay over. You need somewhere to eat and drink, and it's great that we've got places on board that are working with us to offer discounts. Without further ado, I will hand over to Christina, who will talk a bit more about DiSC.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to have a little look at DiSC today. Obviously, it's quite a big topic, so we're just going to scratch the surface in the half-hour session that we've got today. But hopefully, it'll just let you know a little bit about DiSC, what it's used for, and we'll go into it in a bit more detail. So this is quite an appropriate quote, really, because DiSC is all about behaviour. So you'll hear lots of talk about personality tools and all that sort of stuff, and some would consider DiSC to be one of those, but actually it's more of a behavioural tool, DiSC, and you can change your behaviour. So that's why it's so great. It's great to work with teams, and we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail as we go through. So people can really understand why they are now, but also how they might want to change to improve in a certain area, or if you're becoming a manager, to become a better manager, all that sort of stuff. So let's dive in without further ado. So this is what this wheel might look like, and you probably have seen this before if you know anything about DiSC. What you tend to have is that the sort of top half is more action-based, the bottom half is more around the empathetic side and the accuracy, and we'll look at all the little bits in more detail as we go through. But first we're going to look at, where did it all start? So what is DiSC and where does it come from? So it actually started on the basis of the work done by psychologist William Moulton Marston in the 1920s. He was a lawyer and a psychologist, quite an interesting character. He did loads of different self-help books. He apparently contributed to the first polygraph test. He created the character Wonder Woman. I'm not sure how that went with self-help books, but there you go. He created that character as well, and did a lot of work in terms of people's behaviours, personalities, all that sort of stuff. He actually released a book in 1928 called The Emotions of Normal People, and in that book he went on to describe the 4 different sectors that you see here before you, and we'll talk about those in a bit more detail as we go through. He contributed, so he did the basis of all the work, and then actually this was further developed by John Geyer, and his assessment became Everything DiSC. That actually is now owned by John Wiley and Sons, and then what you have from them, they own the umbrella company, and then they have particular people that they work with to house all the training and things. So I worked with a group called the AHA Training Academy, and that's how I did my DiSC training, but there are loads and loads of them throughout the UK, so it's quite easy to get DiSC trained these days. And it's a really great tool. I really enjoy it, and I've used it in all sorts of different things, which we'll talk about as we go through. So that's really the basis of where it all started. So what do we use it for? So DiSC is a really good tool for helping you understand your behaviour. It's really good at helping you clarify things. It's good at helping people realise where they are, because sometimes it's very easy to tell people, you know, their traits, and they might or might not be very receptive to it. But actually, this is from a questionnaire that they fill out themselves, and then they get the results back. The results come in a really thick report, so it's about 20 pages long. It's really, really detailed. And it will help them understand from their own answers that they've given where they are in the scale. And you can do one-to-ones with people to understand their DiSC reports. You can do it in group sessions, and again, we'll have a little chat as we go through a little bit more about that. But some of the, so you do your assessment, so it's a bit like a questionnaire. You get your results at the end, and then from there, it gives you that common language, and it becomes almost a game then. You know, when we've done it in group sessions, it's almost a game to say, oh, what are you? Or, and you sort of have a little bit of a laugh and a joke. If you can get the big carpets with the DiSC circle on, and then you can make people stand wherever they are on the assessment, and then be a bit like, well, if I'm a D, how do I interact with someone that's an I? And all that sort of stuff. So really, really good. So it can help improve your working relationship. So if you've got conflicts within a team, it can help overcome that. And again, you can do it in a light-hearted way if you're that way inclined. And it also facilitates better teamwork. So, you know, if you really understand where people's strengths and weaknesses are, then obviously you can play to that to become that high-performing team that everyone sort of endeavours to be. So we'll go into it in a little bit more detail here. So in terms of the behaviours, the DiSC circle, although it's a square on this particular diagram just for the purposes of explaining it, it looks at behaviours in 4 groups. So you're usually either predominantly one of these groups, and we'll talk about, you actually are a bit of everything, but you'll be predominant in one of the groups. So the dominance is all, D's for dominance, and that's all about being direct, results orientated, firm, strong-willed, forceful. So usually the more confident people, or the more driven people, or, you know, that's that type of person. And there is a scale for all of these. So you're not, if you're a D, so I'm quite a high D, but it doesn't mean that there is still a scale. So wherever you are on the circle, and we'll look at some of the patterns, you know, you can either be really a high D, where you're, you know, perhaps to the obliviation of everybody else, sort of on that path and driven, or you can be a bit more of a tempered D with all the other behaviours having a bit of an influence. So the I stands for influence. You tend to get lots of sort of salesy people in this sort of square. So it's all about influence, negotiation. It's all about being quite outgoing, enthusiastic, optimistic, high-spirited and lively. So again, that usually fits quite well with salespeople in particular. It's not to say that people in other departments aren't like that, but I tend to find that particularly in sales, or actually senior management as well, if they've got to interact with a lot of people, you tend to find that a lot of heads of departments or directors might be sort of high D, high I, that sort of half. Tend to be a bit more fast-paced, tend to be a little bit more adaptable, all that sort of stuff. The next one is, excuse me, is C for conscientious. So you tend to be the more analytical people, sometimes a little bit more reserved, generally a lot more precise. So D's and I's tend to be maybe a little bit more blue sky thinking, all that kind of stuff. And then I's tend to be into the detail, quite systematic. So again, you know, I'm sure you can guess you get more of the accountancy guys in this sort of sector, and data analysts, people who've really got to dig into that data and look at things in minute detail, where perhaps an I or a D might get a little bit bored with going into that level of detail. So that's the type of general person that a C is. And again, as I've said with the D's and the I's, there's a scale to how far a C you are, and we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a sec. The last one is the S for steadiness. So these people tend to be a lot more patient, they tend to be a lot more even-tempered, accommodating, perhaps more empathetic, definitely more tactful than a D or an I, and perhaps a little bit more humble than a D and an I as well. So again, that's a really good person to have in the team, just to make sure that things don't run away with themselves, and that they can bring it back and keep everything sort of calm, feet on the ground, that sort of type of person. So it's really important actually when you have high performing teams that actually kind of need a bit of everything in there. So you do need some people who are going to be the blue sky thinkers and have the ideas and be really enthusiastic, but then you also need the conscientious people who are going to look at how that works in reality. If we look at this slide, then you can just see how when you get the reports, there'll be loads of diagrams in it like this, and it'll tell you, this sort of diagram shows you a little bit about how you might be. So this person here is a dominant person predominantly, so they're in the dominance, but actually they have a little bit of the I here, they have a bit of S, and they have a bit of C, and because they're sort of halfway through each quarter, if you like, they've actually got quite an even spread, which is really good, particularly if you're in a manager type scenario. You know, you couldn't have a manager that was just D, because then how would they help people who are struggling? How would they be empathetic to things that are going on with their staff? How would they manage their budgets and be into the detail? You know, so you do need, particularly as you sort of grow in your organization and become more senior, you need to have a little bit of everything and be able to adapt yourself to different situations. And again, where that dot is here on the D, if that was right on the edge of the circle, then that person would be, you know, really high D to, you know, like I say, kind of oblivious to all else. But because they're kind of centered between the outside and the sort of center of the circle, you know, they are predominantly high D, but again, they are able to flex, which is reflected into the other quarters. So you will have a predominant quartile, but then as the slide says, the shading expands the story. So assessments. So when you look at DiSC is quite a big company now, and as they've grown, there's different assessments for different things that you can get. The workplace profile is the most popular and the most general one that they do. So that's the one that's been going a long time. They've updated it as they've gone along, and it's a really, really good profile to use. And it's probably the one that I use the most when I work with people or work with teams. But there are different ones that you can get, and there's like, oh, I don't know, 6 or 7 now that you can get. So you can get one that's specifically for salespeople these days. So it's all the questions on there is generated to how they are as a salesperson and what they need to do to become a better salesperson. There's ones for managers. There's like what they call a 363 for leaders, which is a slightly different style of profile. And they also do one for agile content, productive conflict. So if you've got lots of conflict in teams that you want to work on, then there's ones that look at that particular. And they also have a newish one called the 5 Behaviours of a Cohesive Team, which is actually based on a best-selling book. And they've developed that assessment through that book. But like I say, the one that I use the most, and the one that's perhaps the most popular, is the workplace profile. And for me, you know, I've used the management one a couple of times, and that's been quite good as well. But really, if you want a general one, then I would always go for the workplace profile, because the reports, like I say, are 20-30 pages long, really, really detailed, and it's really, really good. So to do group work and loads of other stuff, and I'll talk about that in just a sec. Okay. I'll talk about it now, actually. So one of the things you can do if you have a team, so ways in which you can use this. So I've used it, one, in recruitment. So I worked with an organisation in Leeds, and we used it as part of a recruitment process. Now, I would always suggest that you never use any sort of behavioural or personality tools as just on its own, in terms of recruiting people, but certainly as part of the recruitment process, particularly when you're doing more senior recruitment, it's really helpful to know what people are like, and how they might fit into the team and what they might bring to the team as well. So we used it as part of the recruitment process for quite a senior person. There was quite a few internal people who did the profiles, who'd gone for the job, and then also some external. And it was really interesting just to use it, to talk to them about it in their interviews, see what they thought, see what they thought their strengths and weaknesses were. And we found it really, really useful as part of that process. other ways we use it is generally when you either want people to become a bit more self-aware. So particularly if people are new to management or kind of working up their way up the ladder, maybe they've got some, not faults, but things to areas of development that you would like them to work on. And rather than telling the person about it, sometimes if they do one of these reports and they sort of get it as a result of that report, it has a little bit more impact than somebody just telling them, actually, you've got no patience and you need to, work more closely with your team, or actually, you're such a driven person that you're off driving, but you're leaving the rest of your team behind, and they need that support and encouragement. So you can say that, but sometimes people will get very defensive and take it very personally when you're saying that, unless you can be very diplomatic and you're very good at wording that kind of thing. Or if they fill out their own report and they come out as high D and whatever, then you can sort of say to them, oh, okay, so you've come out as quite high D there. What do you think you could do to bring the rest of your team along? Or how do you think you could improve? And then they're kind of working it out for themselves a little bit more, which I find is always works better. So that's one way you could use it. The last way, well, there's loads of ways you can use it, but the last way that I tend to use it the most is when you've got a bit of conflict in the team, or sometimes when you've got like a new team that's been put together, or you've got some people who've been there for ages and then you've got new fresh blood and they're not gelling that well, then you can use it as part of a group exercise. So we've done it with sort of 10 people in a team before, where we've got everybody to do their reports. And then we've had the big carpets, so we've had the big round disc carpet. We get people to stand at where they are. Then we talk about the sort of behaviours for each quartile. Then we sort of say, so Christina, as a D, what would you do to get the best out of Susan, who's an S? How would you present yourself to her? Or, Christina, how would you present yourself to someone who was in the C, so conscientious? And I'd be like, well, I would need to, not give the overarching information. I would need to chunk it down and give them a little bit more detail, because they really want to know all the detail about how it's going to work, what's going to happen, whatever. So I would need to make that effort to provide them with a bit more detail for me to get the best out of them. So it really starts to get people to think how they're going to get the best out of the people that are in different sectors to them, and therefore not thinking in exactly the same way that they do. So loads and loads of different ways where you could use DiSC. So, that is a really, really top level scratch of the surface into DiSC. We could go into it in a lot more detail, and if it's something people are really interested in, we could do a longer session and go through it in much more detail.
If you've not seen already or heard, if you've been following My People Club, then we launched an online mini coaching course whilst kind of COVID was happening and lockdown. We heard from a lot of our members and just people that are in our community that they were starting to struggle a bit during lockdown, just in terms of their mindset, in terms of their focus. And for some, it was because they've been furloughed. At worst, they'd lost their job. Or for people who are running their own business, they were just in a bit of a quandary about what to do, to whether they pivot, for the word that everyone was using, or whether they take some time out, or whether they just carry on as they were, and they needed some help getting some focus. So we realized, rather than trying to help everyone individually as they approached us, it would be good to put together a course that we could offer out to people so that they can help themselves at their own pace, and kind of learning in their own style. So it's a mini coaching course called Thriving in Challenging Times, and it's a series of 5 videos that takes people through the process of adopting the right mindset, having the right focus, thinking about how they plan what they want to achieve, and remembering that it's important to recognize when they're making those achievements, recognizing when they're making just small steps, and how they reward themselves with that, whether that's treating themselves to something they've always wanted, whether it's giving themselves the afternoon off, spending more time with friends and family where they can kind of during lockdown, just trying to make the most of it. So that mini coaching course is available. It's on our shop, and we priced it really low at £27, just for those 5 videos and a really comprehensive workbook for people to go through. We've also got an event happening. Now, we've not told anyone outside of our community yet, so this is a bit of an exclusive for those of you before we go on general admission tomorrow. But we've got an event on Friday, the 17th of July, and it's kind of along the same theme really as what I've just talked about. Where we know that people have just been struggling through these last few months, and a lot of people now are trying to find some direction and purpose moving forward, whether that's going back to work after furlough, whether that's trying to find a new job, whether it's repurposing their career, or maybe as a business owner just trying to think about what the rest of the year looks like. And so we wanted to bring people together to say, it has been a heck of a few months. Let's get together. Let's also try and get you in front of a few special speakers who can really help you think about what you do moving forward, and give you that motivation and encouragement. So the three speakers we've got are Penny Haslam, who used to be on the BBC as a business presenter and now is a motivational speaker and helps people become basically a little bit famous. So really think about how they get themselves out there to their intended audience. So she's going to give us about a half an hour talk. We've also got a lady called Danny Wallace, who's also known as the Queen Bee, and she's been working with us for a while to produce one of the masterclasses. She did the one for last month, and she really helps people find their inner confidence. And her thing is about showing up, wising up, and rising up, and really about getting the confidence to share your voice, share who you are, and again, a bit like Penny, reach your audience. But they've both got their own personal stories that have taken them to who they are today and how they help people. And the last person is Abby Adamson, who has just co-founded a new business, kind of collaborating with someone to work with businesses to help them approach the tricky subject of diversity. And obviously that's been a hot topic, certainly in terms of racial prejudice, racial thoughts, beliefs with Black Lives Matter that's happened across the world, and predominantly the USA and UK. She educates businesses about everything around diversity. So we just thought it is a hot topic for people in HR, because they probably had to deal with it over the last month or two. And as people return to work and they're talking about how lockdown has been, it will be one of the subjects that comes up. So she's helping people have the right conversations about it, have healthy conversations. So she's our third speaker who will be there during the event. We're really pleased to have them on board. And the event is also raising money for our charity, which is Child Bereavement UK. And they're our charity for this year. It's a charity close to us. It's close to me as someone that's suffered bereavement as a child. And so 80% of the money for the event will be going to the charity. The final 20% we'll give out as a couple of spot prizes, as we'll do a bit of a quiz on the evening as well, just to make sure we bring in a bit of fun as well as some really motivational, inspirational business talk. So if you're in our Facebook community, which is My People Club's HR coaching and training community, then you'll see that we've been giving a sneak peek of the speakers and where to buy tickets. Keep your eyes peeled, or even if you happen to go onto Eventbrite, you'll find it on there now if you want to get an early ticket. They're £10. If you're in our Facebook community, you'll get a discount as well. So a bit of motivation there to join all the others in the community as well. If you want to find out more about us, email us, check our website, www.mypeopleclub.com. And you can find us on social media as well. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon.